Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Unstoppable You podcast. I'm saying evening because it's Monday night at 9 that you're going to get to see this, although I am pre-recording because of our guest today. We are in very, very different time zones, and you can see the sun is shining here, but Monday night it will not be shining. So this is season 2, episode 12 of the Unstoppable You podcast, brought to you by EJA Moving. They are a local moving company who works nationwide, and it's a great time to think about that for your students. I know colleges are starting up if people are moving for that. And they are another company that offers the boxes for you if you use them. So it's a great feature. So you can check more about them at ejamoving.com. So today I have Nontu Mgabhi from South Africa tuning in. And as I already shared with her before we started recording, I'm so proud of her and happy to have her on here today. I connected with her through a travel group on social media, and I saw her story and I reached out and I was like, hey, this is truly an unstoppable woman. So thank you for joining me and agreeing to come here and tell your story. I think it's amazing.
Thank you very much, Heather, for having me. It's really a privilege and a pleasure to share my story with you and the listeners.
Yeah. So you're from South Africa?
That is right, yes.
Yeah. And you are the first African woman to run this. So it's technically a challenge. It's a marathon challenge, a global marathon challenge. And the objective is to run the 7 continents, 7 days, 7 marathons. Is that correct?
Right. Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. And you're the first African woman to complete this.
Indeed, I'm honored and privileged to be the first African woman to run 7 marathons on 7 continents in 7 days.
Yeah. So let's is there another African that has done it, or are you the first African?
First African female. There is an African gentleman by the name of Ross Toggart who did it in 2019.
Okay, so it's new still. It's new for that too. Oh, that's great. Awesome. So talk about what that takes. First of all, why would you do that? That seems so hard. And what does it look like? Where did you start? Let's talk about the path that.
Yes, indeed. It has always started in Antarctica, obviously, because in Antarctica, the weather conditions are hard to predict. So because the challenge, what makes it really unique and extreme in nature is that you run 7 marathons on 7 continents in 7 successive days. So now it always started in Antarctica, so that if we get to Antarctica and the weather is bad, we can hang around and be able to start, finish, and move without stopping or breaking the days. So this year, it was different in a sense that we were supposed to leave for Antarctica on the 6th of February. And when we were at the airport, because we all met in Cape Town so that we can leave for Antarctica. But because of bad weather conditions, we couldn't leave for Antarctica on the 6th. So we had to go back to our hotels in Cape Town. And we were hoping we'll attempt leaving the following day. And the following day came and the weather conditions were still terrible. And the race director had to actually change the plan because we were going to use a private charter plane for all the 7 continents. So he had to actually change the plan and get the military aircraft, which is operated by Russians who are very experienced in bad weather conditions. As a result, we ended up starting with the African Continent Marathon in Cape Town. So it became the first marathon. After Cape Town, we then moved to Antarctica. The conditions were still very bad, very strong gale wind. It was really tough, but we managed to pull through.
Wow. And I'm a runner, so I can understand running in the wind, running in extreme cold. It's one thing to be a runner, but it's very difficult to change the conditions around us and still maintain good breathing, even your pace, because the wind sometimes can push you or back or push you forward and make it difficult to find your comfort zone, right? For stability over a long run.
Absolutely, yes. I mean, it was obviously tough. I mean, you imagine running on ice and with storm weather conditions and really freezing. I mean, it was so bad to a point that even the water that you are carrying to drink were turning into ice. Your hands, you could swear you're having a frostbite. And after that, having to move and do our third marathon in Australia. It was nice and flat, and the weather was quite lovely. I enjoyed it. I think I did my best time there, making up for the lost time in Antarctica. After Australia, we then moved to Asia in Dubai. After Dubai, we then moved to Europe, in Spain, in Madrid. Thereafter, we went to Brazil, and then we ended in Miami. Yeah.
Which one was the most difficult?
Definitely, it goes without saying that Antarctica was very challenging. It really, it did demand that you dig deep to finish the race.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. What kind of preparation mentally does one do to prepare for such a challenge like this?
It's a very interesting question you've just asked there, because when you go for a challenge like this, you try as much as you can in preparation to control what you can, knowing that there are elements that you really cannot control. For example, you cannot control the weather on the day. You also cannot control fully how the logistics pan out. As you can see, we obviously didn't actually start where we had hoped to start, and etc. But really mentally, you have to rely a lot on why you are doing this. And also you draw strength from other participants, because you're not in this alone. So for me, I invested a lot of preparation in terms of training my body to deal with high mileage. Months leading up to the challenge, I was just averaging 550 kilometers per month, just to train my body to be able to cope with fatigue, so that you are able to still push on your sixth or your last marathon. So in terms of mental strength, of course, I mean, for example, South America was also a challenge in terms of heat. Brazil was extremely hot, 36 degrees. Yeah. So even although...
What part of Brazil were you in?
We're in Fortaleza.
Okay, yep, the Northeast.
Yeah, it was very, very hot. Initially when we started running, I thought, I'm a South African, I'm used to heat. I have an advantage. But really within a few kilometers, I realized that I have to slightly drop my pace so that I can see the finish line. So it was quite challenging. But again, it is also through challenges like these that you actually push your limits, and also you come close to what is seemingly seen as impossible. You defy what is impossible. I mean, you really become unstoppable at some point.
Yeah, sure. Oh, it's really neat to see. So how was your attitude once you've done maybe 3 days and you still have 4 left? How were you feeling in the process?
It was quite interesting, because when I started this challenge, it's human nature to be slightly impatient. When you do your first one, you can't wait for your fourth. But I said to myself, Nontu, this is an adventure that you might not repeat. So take in every mile, take in every hour. Do not rush the process. Go with the flow, take it easy. And also, thanks to my coach, Prodigal Kumalo, because he really was incredible in terms of preparing me for this challenge, as well as almost setting clear goals and objectives, or what's expected of me on the first marathon, second, third, so that I do not burn myself too quickly. So first marathon, I took it extremely easy, just to, first and foremost, also calm my nerves, just feel the challenge. Second one, of course, also Antarctica was a slow one with the weather conditions, etc. On the third one, that when I started to want to find my pace. And really mine was just to run under 4 hours. So I did most of them just under 4 hours, like 3 hour 40 something minutes, 3 hour 50 something minutes. And that enabled me to actually consistently maintain my pace, because long distance running is about pacing yourself. So I must be honest with you, came third, fourth one, I still had energy for the remaining marathons.
Mm, that's good. That's good. So is the objective, or I guess the intention about doing this, is it about time, or is it about basically saying that I have completed this challenge?
A very interesting question you've asked, because for me, I am a runner that doesn't really run for a podium. I run to inspire and change lives. So for whatever challenge that I take up, I run 100-mile races, and I never really put target to it in terms of time. Of course, I can put some target based on training, but it is never about coming second, third, or fourth, or fifth. So for me on this one in particular, it was more, first and foremost, to inspire rural village children. I'm a girl from a rural village of Mseleni, where they still face a number of educational challenges. And sometimes when you are exposed to extreme poverty, you have to dig deep to find inspiration. So I ran this challenge to actually raise money to change their school infrastructure by building 5 new classrooms, administration offices, and renovate the school infrastructure. The conditions they're learning under, some of the classrooms, there's like over 100 learners under the care of one teacher because they don't have enough classrooms. So that was the biggest motivation for me. Obviously, with that came, I would love to come back to them and say, I finished. Mm-hmm. So when the going was getting tough, I said, no, Nontu, the story you want to go back and tell Keeping Kunzi primary school learners is that I did it. So for me, it was to finish.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Now so, you and I have spoke quite a while ago before we were on the lockdown. I know in South Africa, you also experienced the same. And we didn't have a mandatory quarantine here in New York. I live actually 4 hours north of the city. So we are in the northern part of New York State. So it's much more rural than New York City. But we also had very strict guidelines about staying home. And we couldn't work. Only essential workers were allowed to work. So, but anyway, that disrupted our time in connecting because we couldn't connect over a good internet connection to have a Zoom call. So has that affected the process that you've been on to get back to the school, share that you've completed it? Because it kind of all happened at the same time. When you were finishing, this virus started to spread around the world. How has that made a difference, I should say?
Yes, it has indeed, in a big way. Fortunately, when I returned, they actually welcomed me at the airport in South Africa, which was beautiful and heartwarming. And a week after, I scheduled to go to the school and to engage with every learner because they really had me in mind while I was running. And really to do this was also more about inspiration, that they can see a girl that they can see themselves reflected in, and that will inspire them to say, if she can go across 7 continents, when I grow up, I want to be a better version of her. So I went to the school and just to chat about my trip and just engage, laugh. And then thereafter, the plan was to start the building. So we'd already done the design and everything. And as you've highlighted, then on the 27th of March, we started with level 5, complete lockdown. And yes, and we're currently on level 4 lockdown. So we're still on lockdown. And we're hoping that if we continue with containing the spread of the virus, we will soon move to level 3, where we can be permitted to start construction. So if everything goes well, we're looking at the next month to start building at the school. It has indeed stalled the plans, I have to say. It has also stalled fundraising initiatives, because now when you go to people and businesses looking for money to build a school, sorry, we don't have money. We are not operating. All the money we have, we had to channel to COVID-19. So you know what? It is what it is. So we can only accept the current reality as it is.
Yeah, that's true. I've talked a lot about with people, with clients, with everybody, that the visions, pandemic is not stronger than the vision. The vision is really important. It just changes the process and the flow of how we get there.
Yeah.
I'm really glad that you see that. And what you're doing is very important. And the children are probably very appreciative of that. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And what I've also done is to say we are in this space, we can't build. And, truth is a number of children who attend that school depended a lot on food that is served at school by government for free. That actually is their main source of meal for a day. So now with the schools being locked down, they are unable to get any meal or proper meal for a day. So I've started the initiative. As we got into level 4 of the lockdown, it became a part of the regulation. It became mandatory that when you leave your private space, you wear a cloth mask. And when you go to many rural villages, people who are living below the poverty line, they don't have the means to buy the mask because the mask is competing with bread and butter. So I looked at ways to fundraise, to raise enough masks to distribute to the community, to the learners, as well as their family members. So I've managed so far to source 3,200 masks, which we started distribution yesterday at the village. And we also started distributing food parcels. Like I've highlighted, a number of learners really during this time, they're praying that schools open so that they can get some food. So we're able to distribute some food that can at least last them for 2 months or so. Hopefully by the time food is exhausted, they'll be able to go back to school.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, you shared some of the pictures. If you don't mind, when this airs, I will share them in the comments so people can see some of the other work you've been doing. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what's next for the school, I guess? So you've done the run, you're working on the fundraising. That's a continuous effort. When the lockdown opens up to level 3, you said, you can begin construction. Now, as the school expands, will it employ more people for teachers in the village, or how does that work when you grow? What's the plan for sustainability?
Indeed, I've engaged the Department of Education exactly around that. And obviously based on the number of classrooms and the number of learners, because also building 5 classrooms will also increase enrollment by at least 15%. As the enrollment goes up, then the Department of Education is able to employ more educators.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what got you, I understand that you're from this village?
No, just outside the village, yes.
Okay. So what gave you the idea, what do you do for your job every day? And what gave you the idea that this would be something that you were willing to give a lot of time and a lot of work to, what inspired you about this? Besides them seeing somebody be successful and sharing inspiration, because it's deeper than that, right? This is
Absolutely.
A big job emotionally, mentally, physically.
Absolutely. I grew up in a rural village called Mseleni. It's about an hour and a half drive from this particular village. So we are shaped by our own experiences. So in 2018, when I celebrated my 32nd birthday, I wanted to challenge myself with a 100-mile race. So I signed up to run 100-mile race. So when I signed up, they then asked me if I would like to donate to a cause of feeding vulnerable and needy children in rural village, which I did. Later on, they asked if they can actually follow me while I run this 160 kilometers. I said, oh no, I don't want cameras around me when I'm crying and breaking down, And I said, yes, we are running this campaign. We will play this video to the learners in the schools that we are supporting in rural village. And we believe that you may inspire so many of them. And I said, oh, wow, that sounds like it's for a good reason. I don't mind if they see me crying. Anyway, so they followed my journey. After the run, they asked me to visit this particular school. I didn't know this school before. I actually never even had been to this village before. So I said, of course, I'm available. I can go there to spend a day with learners playing sports a bit. When I got to the school, that's when I learned about the needs of the school. And really, it's moved my heart. It left me emotional that there are learners who are still subjected to these conditions, because truth is, genius is equally distributed, but opportunities aren't. So it left me with a question of how can I, in a small way, try to bridge the gap, because the gap is too wide between those who are affording decent education and those who aren't. In 2019, while I was looking for a different challenge, this 7 marathons, 7 continents, 7 days popped up. I'd never even heard of this challenge before. Then I looked at it and I said, this is going to be a grueling challenge. I can't just do it just for fun. Then the school came back. And because I'd seen the school in 2018 and continued with life, forgot about the school. I saw this challenge. The school came back flying in my mind. And I said, I want to actually run this challenge to assist the school. And then I went back to the school to engage them. I actually, like I highlighted, I also come from a rural village. I was fortunate when I finished school to get sponsorship to go to university and study up to a master's level and get further sponsorship to study in America and in Europe and Germany. And to qualify as a psychologist, I now work as an executive member of Richards Bay Core Terminal as a general manager of human resources. When I say genius is equally distributed, but opportunities aren't, I really speak from experience, because thanks to those who really did give a hand to me and saw a potential in me, because they've made me who I am. And so many other learners out there in rural villages that need people who can just be a bridge so that they can also be unstoppable, and have a fair chance to succeed.
Yeah, that's really, really powerful. Say that statement again, genius, the one about this.
Yes, genius is equally distributed, but opportunities are not.
Yes. That's so good. That's so good. I think so many people in America need to hear that. We still have a lot of struggles in America, and even inequalities within race. It's terrible. But genius is amongst everybody.
Everybody. Yes.
Yeah. And even if we don't have the opportunity, this is making me think to talk about this. If we don't want to, we don't have to. But right now, you see a lot in the media about, especially with the racism, right? People don't have opportunities, and that's true. That's very true. But when we show people that people from the same neighborhoods, people from the same families, they can be successful, but even if they have more hurdles in front and they need to jump, how important that we can show them you can still jump. You can still have the ability to jump. And because that's so important, and we show them that it is possible, rather than spread fear that it's more difficult, so don't do it.
Yes, absolutely. I always say you need to approach it in a sort of in 2 ways. One is to try to close the gap of inequality, and the other, it is to actually inspire the being unstoppable to say, you know what, no matter how high the barrier is, I'm going to jump.
Yes.
Taller the wall, the higher I'm going to jump. Because we're not maybe in this lifetime going to totally close inequalities, but we need people who are going to be persistent and resistant to actually overcome as many as possible barriers that are put before them. Yeah. It's ruthless. You have to be ruthless to... Yes,
absolutely. And it's really hard because sometimes the mentality is there that even for somebody like me, because I'm white, I'm female, immediately it's a privilege. It's a privilege. I understand and I accept that is for sure true in America for some people, that they automatically have an advantage because of the color, where they're from, whatever. But when I work with other communities, sometimes I wish they didn't see that part. I wish they were more focused that they are unstoppable too. And that my story is, it's my story, but we all have a story, and we all have genius, and that should be so the focus. the focus.
Yes, I think what is important as well, you're absolutely right, because what is important is compassion and empathy, because empathy allows you to see the privilege you have that others lack. For instance, I'm a very privileged Black South African. It's a fact. There are so many not so privileged people. And there are people who are experiencing extreme levels of poverty that my mind cannot even comprehend with, because I sit in a position of privilege. And when I engage with them, first and foremost, I accept that I'm privileged. And then I ask myself, what is freedom? And Nelson Mandela once said, there's no point of freedom if you cannot free someone else. So if you are free, you have a responsibility to free someone else. And often, to your point, often we think freeing someone else is by only giving them something. To your point, sometimes it's just about giving them the courage that do not look down upon yourself because you are equally intelligent.
Yeah, the famous sign or saying that if we spend our whole lives believing that, you know, as a fish, believing that we were supposed to climb a tree, then we will feel like a failure. And,
absolutely.
And it's so important. I love working with people, helping them figure out what they do or what they need to do to kind of light their soul on fire and feel like they're winning, because everybody needs to feel like they're winning. But if we try to play somebody else's game, we may not be winning. We need to play our own game and use our own genius. So
yes. And globally, I think we're still dealing with what Tolle on his book titled New Earth. And globally we still have this, he calls it body pain, you know? Body pain is something that you have allowed yourself to live in the past trauma. That you don't want to free yourself from the past trauma, that you don't want to learn from Heather because she's different from you, and already you think she's too privileged to teach me or tell me anything. That is body pain that we need to read ourselves. Body pain is any hate that clouds your fair judgment about situation and people, that we need to read ourselves. Often we feel like we have a right to attach to previous traumas. Truth is, life is only happening in the now. It will never take place in the past, and it will never take place in the future. Life is only now.
Yes, so good, so powerful, and so true. And another thing that it's really important for people to remember, that we can't compare each other's pain as well. Pain is something that we experience, and we bring that with what we've grown around or what we've experienced. And it's really important to recognize that we each have our pain, and that we understand what's important to each other, to you, to me, to whoever, and we can be much more at peace with ourselves and other people and our differences when we accept our own pain as important, you know. Yeah. Great. That's great. So let's go back to the race. The races. Let's talk about some fun stuff. Anything funny happened, scary happened? Like, I mean, you're in 7 different continents, 7 very, very different climates, different cultures. Let's talk about like some of the chaos about this.
The most interesting part is over the 7 days, we only got to shower 3 times only.
Wow.
Because we were really pressed for time. For example, after we left for Antarctica, we went to Antarctica, we ran, we finished without shower. We had to head straight to Australia. And that was like 18-hour flight, because we came from Antarctica. We went back to Cape Town so that we can get into our dedicated charter plane and leave the Russian one. So another 18 hours, no shower. We get there, no time for shower. You just run, you will shower afterwards. And really, it's taught me that in life, we don't need so much, we believe that we need, like sometimes we confuse luxury with necessity, and very often we think that inconvenience is oppression. It is also through adventures like these when you actually realize that you can survive with less. You can actually wear the same clothes 2-3 days, I'm not advocating for people not to be hygienic, of course. It gives you an opportunity to really question. I mean, currently we're on lockdown. We haven't been on restaurants. And really, of course, people are experiencing this time differently. But for me, it has taught me that I don't need much. That shake that sometimes I used to think that, I need it. No, it wasn't a need. It was a want, because I've survived now 56 days without it, right?
56 days.
Yeah. And of course, there were painful moments. For example, when we were in Brazil, a guy that was leading the race, who had led all 5 marathons, could not finish the 6th marathon, Heat was too much and he sustained an injury. He was such a lovely guy. He was running very incredible. That was so sad for all of us. We're like, oh no. And one of the gentlemen also finished in a wheelchair. So it was quite also difficult in its sense. And those were sad moments, low moments, because we became a team. And there were 14 ladies, and we bonded so very much. And unfortunately, we were supposed to be 42, but unfortunately, I think about 6 or so participants who were from China could not join us, of course, because of the virus. So we then continued. So it was adventurous. I mean, when we were tired, we would get into the bus when we're going to the airport. We're all gonna be like feeling pain. You stand up, you're like, it was just so tough. We normalized pain, to get through. You felt the pain. You realized it's part of the process. Pain became something you cherish. So it was really amazing. And most of us were running for a cause. To your point, we are very similar, no matter how much we often think we're different. And one thing that COVID-19 has also highlighted is that we are one. What happens to you happens to me. What happens to someone in China is happening to me. What happens to someone in the US is happening to me. We are actually connected. We are never strangers. Me and you, we might think, we met on the travel sites on social media, but spiritually, we have always met because we are one, and it has made us realize how similar we are. I mean, currently, we all are trying to preserve our health. No one is focusing on anything else. Can you imagine? The entire globe is thinking about health. The entire globe is concerned about what is happening in another continent or another country, because what is happening to them will also restrict my movement.
Yes. Yeah. So when you apply to get into this marathon, how is that selection process? And you said you started in Cape Town. So other international, other countries are involved?
Yes.
So everybody comes to Cape Town in the first one, and then you travel together to each of the locations?
That is correct. Yes. I was very lucky because then I saved on an international flight, because it was a local flight to Cape Town, but a number of them from America, Australia, they had to fly to Cape Town. And we then meet as a group on the 4th of February. In fact, we met for race briefing and just to come down for 2 days, just to be together and see that everything is in order. And then we moved as a group right through the last marathon in Miami.
Yeah. How many people total? You said there was 14 women, but how many total?
14 women and 26 males, if I recall.
Big group. It's a big group.
It was indeed, yes.
How many countries were represented?
I stand to be corrected, but I think 16.
Wow.
6, yes. Majority were from America.
How many from America?
I'm saying majority were from America.
Oh, majority. Okay.
Majority, yes.
Yeah. It's really interesting because I've also never heard of this challenge.
Yeah, I know. And when I saw it, I was seeing it I was like, initially I thought, no, they're pulling a leg. There's no such thing. How do you pull this together? You know?
Yeah. So so imagine, I'm just trying to imagine. Of course, you don't need to imagine because now you've had the experience. The time zones. So you probably have no idea what time it is, what day it is, because you're jumping back 6 hours, forward 6 hours, all these, you get home and it's like, oh, it's 7 days later. But do you really have any notion of time or day when you're going through the experience?
Not at all, to be honest. You really lose track of what day it is, what time it is. And you really just don't care. You just want to move. It was quite interesting because it was like someone has pressed a stop button in terms of time, light, days, because we would get to, for example, in Australia, we started our marathon at 11:30 p.m. In Dubai, we started our marathon at 12 midnight. So whatever the time we get there, we run. You land, you run, you finish, back onto the flights, you fly to another continent, you run, finish, etc. So really there was no sense of time or day.
Wow, yeah. So when do you sleep? Just on the flight?
Yes, you sleep while you're flying to the next continent.
Yeah, wow. And how would you manage to sleep? Can you sleep on planes okay?
Yes, you know, one thing that one had to learn quickly was that recovery is more important than your energy during the run. So you do whatever necessary to aid or support yourself to recover better. So I was drinking a lot of water, I was eating a lot, and I was trying to sleep a lot. Of course, sleeping on a plane is different from sleeping in your bed. I recall after the marathon in Miami, so I had booked a hotel very close to the finish line. When I got to the hotel, checked in, took my key to the room, I opened the room, I literally cried to see a bed. I was like, oh my God, today I sleep in a bed. I promise you, I walked around, I went to the shower, I ran hot water. I felt the warmth of the water. I was like, today I'm going to have a proper shower. What a privilege.
Yeah, it's such an appreciation, a different appreciation for that.
Yes.
Yeah. So how can people find you and look at the school, follow your story, share something that people can continue to share this experience with you and support you in ways that they can?
Thank you. People can indeed go onto the website, which is gobeyondforachild.com. So it's www.gobeyondforachild.com. And also people can follow me on, for example, some can send emails if they wish. That is Nontu, Nontu.Mgabhi, that is Mgabhi at iCloud.com.
Okay. Yeah, and when this airs on Monday, Tuesday for you, and we'll make sure to go back into the comments of this post and add the spellings and everything correctly so people can see that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. So, I mean, there's so much cool stuff about this story. Even a lot of what you said is stuff I say all the time. So I'm just really excited to have this conversation with you and meet you. Like I said, one day I hope to be in South Africa. I don't have any plans finalized because of the stop and lockdown. I just really have focused more on right now what's happening, but I do hope to be there in the future. And I will love to meet you. Yeah.
Yes.
We forget how it's the same being from America. It's a very big country, and people think, oh, New York, I'm coming to New York City. I want to see you. It's like, that's 4 hours in the car. And I remember I told you, I'm looking at this place to go. And when I look where you're from, it's like 9 hours away in the car. I was like, wow, that's a much bigger country than I imagined.
Yes.
So that's great. So, yeah, I mean, are there any last words that you can leave in inspiration for the viewers that have watched this that you could think of to share? Like one sentence of inspiration.
I am truly and deeply inspired by Mother Teresa's quote when she said, if you cannot feed 100 people, feed just one. Every time when I think about I don't have enough to give everyone, I remind myself, if I give just one, that will be enough. So I always, when I depart conversations, I remind people to practice kindness. I always say practice because we don't always get it right. Myself, as someone who's very charitable, who runs noble causes, I'm not always full of kindness, but I try to practice kindness. So I encourage you, everyone at home, to practice kindness. You'll be amazed that when you do something good for others, it truly does enriches your heart.
Yes. Yeah. And not to mention theirs. We never know how it affects somebody else. Yeah.
Absolutely. Because what is ordinary to you is extraordinary to someone else. What you take for granted, someone has been praying for it for years.
Yeah. Yes. I love it. I love it. I loved this conversation. And I thank you again so much for doing this with me.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Stay right there. Don't hang up yet. But I want to thank everyone for tuning in for this episode of the Unstoppable You podcast. Again, with Nontu Mgabhi here from South Africa today with me. An excellent story, super inspirational. Find her and just watch her story. Watch how it evolves. If there's a way you can assist, please do. But just to witness her story is inspiring alone. And I think that spread of kindness is, you're not just building a school, you are doing something that people can watch and feel better about their own self. And I think that is a ripple effect that you won't be able to measure in the walls of the schools you're building for those children. Because at this point, you have received a lot of attention from this task. And you are inspiring a lot of people, and you should be so proud of that. So thank you so much. So thank you for joining me again, where we have unstoppable people, unstoppable stories, unstoppable you, right here on Disruption Network. Have a good night, everyone.